Hey everybody, welcome to Sunny Worthing. I thought it'd be pretty cool actually to look at one of my favourite magazines of all time in the form of Superplay magazine. This was a pretty popular magazine in the UK for the Super Nintendo and ran from 1992 to 1996, and I just thought it'd be pretty cool to share some of my memories and thoughts about the magazine, and also the time that it came out, and what a window on the world that it really was. The first thing that was really striking about the magazine was Will Overton's beautiful manga-style illustrations, which adorned the covers and the full interior of the magazine. And this was a real eye-opener to me. It's also really cool to look through these magazines in a very much a post-internet age almost, because many of the articles here were things that we could only find out by looking in a magazine, such as the charts, for example. And also on the next page, it amused me that Net magazine from Future Publishing was on its first issue here. We'd also find out most about the news and releases. It's also pretty cool that this magazine covered a huge amount of anime, devoting quite a few pages in the magazine to it. You know, this was just something you just didn't get anywhere else, because you couldn't even go into a library and, get out a manga comic book and and seeing all these wonderful illustrations that people used to send in. It's just so beautiful. It's also kind of quirky seeing these little classified ads. This is how generally most of us advertised our gear to swap and buy. And of course, the other thing is that thinking about manga and that, you couldn't just go down your video store and just hire out videos. Even stuff like Akira, which most people had heard of, you'll be very lucky to find that. So, how times change. And, we just found lots and lots of wonderful illustrations done by readers of the magazine. I can't actually recall whether I sent any in. I don't think I did. I was still pretty young at the time. And, just looking at these illustrations just really bring back so many memories of going into the newsagents and getting a magazine, and just spending all my pocket money, which I'd got that week on some sherbet dips and Amiga format, and perhaps Superplay magazine, and maybe a few others. They had competitions where Will Overton had done sort of some instructions of how you could get into drawing manga and so forth, and I have to say some of the examples are really quite impressive, actually, looking back on it. And also, the other thing that we got in these magazines were previews of games that we never ever got in the PAL region. To be teased with Chrono Trigger was just something else, but just look how beautiful these illustrations are. It's just so evocative. We did eventually get Secret of Mana as one of the few JRPGs or action RPGs that we actually got in the UK, albeit a year later than everybody else. But, still wonderful to see one of my favourite games of all time getting some coverage. And one of the few games that I was able to enjoy relatively soon after it was actually launched, rather than having to rely on emulation many years later, because unfortunately I didn't have a Super Famicom or a NTSC SNES to play amazing games like Final Fantasy 3 or 6 as it was in Japan, But I think the important thing about this channel is it's not all about me saying, hey, I played this in 1994 and import. It's actually about, myself. I enjoyed this game a lot later, probably around about 2001. But I wanted to share actually through this channel as the months and years go by that, these games are, so fondly remembered. But, if you've never played it before, there's no shame in that. And actually, I want to share with you over the coming videos passion for these wonderful games that came out in the 90s and so forth on these wonderful systems that you too can now sort of perhaps dip your toes into and start to enjoy. None of my favourites, Illusion of Gaia, that was a real classic. I really can't wait actually to start doing some gameplay videos, some reviews of these classic games. And you can just see this whole magazine just reeks of 90s. It's the actual layout of it, looking back now, does look a little bit, I don't know, OTT and a bit too colourful, but perhaps that's my almost 35-year-old eyes, taking an impression. And the other cool things, they had reports from their reporter in Tokyo, which often had phrases, Japanese for beginners, you can see on the right there. It's kind of amusing, but this is the kind of stuff that we weren't getting anywhere else. We didn't learn this stuff at school. This is pretty cool, because this is about the time when all the next gen consoles like the PlayStation and Saturn were coming about, so lots of magazines were being launched to cover these systems, all the future systems. I did notice there it mentioned also systems like the 3DO and the Amiga CD32, which really didn't live much longer than 94 or so, particularly in the CD32's case. But yeah, it was just a fantastic window on Japanese culture, as well as obviously covering games that weren't just released in a PAL region, but how you could play import games. And they reviewed an absolute ton of import games, which in the other SNES magazines that were out, such as Total, and the official Nintendo magazine, they weren't covering these games. So, for a lot of people, they just probably thought that Mario Kart and Donkey Kong Country was the limit of it. Fatal Fury, I'm not really into my fighting games, but I do have a soft spot for some of the Neo Geo fighting games. I think it's probably more the artwork than the actual games that I enjoy, but Superplay was also really good at covering new technology that was coming in the way, such as the Super Effects chip here that was helping make games like Starwing or Star Fox, as it was in the States, possible. I didn't really understand everything that these articles said, because I was quite young when I was buying this magazine. I was probably only 11 or 12 years old, but still really cool to read about this technology and what it was going to make possible. As you can see, reading magazines on the beach out and trying to film it is a bit of a fool's game, but hey, it's too good to be indoors. Also noticed there's the screenshot of what looks like Jeff Crammon's Grand Prix. Many happy days playing up on the Amiga. It's well worth looking on archive.org, guys, because a lot of Future Publishing's magazines have been scanned and uploaded onto archive.org, so perhaps just put into Google, Superplay magazine, archive.org, and it's interesting here because you can see some of these next-gen consoles there, and all the prices are POA. So that was Superplay magazine. I hope you've enjoyed it, everybody. It's been really fun going through this. So in my next episode, I'm going to finally have my first part of the pixel art. Hooray! It's taken me long enough, hasn't it? We're just going to start very gently looking at the properties of light and how actually, even though it might only be pixel art, it all still matters. And also why you don't always have to go for reality as your guideline for creating wonderful and inspirational pixel art. So do join me for that. It's taken me a bit longer than expected, and I'm sure it's going to be a lot of fun. Hope you can join me for that soon. All that remains for me to say is, see you soon. Bye.